So that's just how life goes sometimes.
What's wrong with it? Let's see, he's not that guy.
No, it's not.
Jackson. There you go.
Good job. Make her come up with it. But you're going to call me something.
Yeah.
One time, my sister and I went to St. Louis and we went to the zoo, and then we went to the like little museum thingy. And on our way back, before we left, we got some wine castles, right? And her order was, you know, fairly quick. My order was taking a while, right? So I decided to go up to the counter, and I see this lady is eating my order, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And the only reason I knew it was my order is because they didn't have anyone in the drive-thru.
Okay, so I got Isaac and Nico on the back row, right? You guys are the ones that are here. Okay. Make sure and not mark the wrong person absent. Oh, Ethan is over there. Thank you, sir. You're hiding. Didn't think you were there. How is everybody? Let's take a look at our exam. You want to take a look?
Yes, we do.
Let's see what we got here. Pretty good. Now, I've heard some different things, not from you guys, I mean, just over the years, about exams in computer programming and technical fields. And I know what my thoughts are. When I started teaching, I was teaching people PC maintenance. And so the certification exam to prove that you're an authorized PC maintenance technician, at that time, the pass rate in the United States was 23%. So meaning 1 out of 4 people that took that exam passed. And usually people have about 8 or 10 years experience when they took that exam. Why is that? Because the certification company was in business to sell certification tests. And if people pass them too easily, they don't make as much money, right? So, I mean, it behooves them to have the test be really hard, right? Because then they can tell people in the industry, we don't just let anybody pass this test. They've got to really prove their knowledge. Well, Microsoft got into the certification field, and so they're not in it just for the money. So that helps. But we still are in an industry that has historically difficult exams and difficult exam questions. So I heard from a math teacher that they say, like in the math department, if people get a C on an exam, they feel like it was an A. The teachers do, because they're like, the topic is so difficult that if someone ends up with a C, you know, that's like an A in a less difficult area. Let's put it that way.
They say the same thing about was it biochem or something?
Is it like that?
Yeah.
Where it's so hard?
Organic chemistry.
And that's how our field is, you know. There's a lot of, whenever you read a question, sometimes you put in a lot of, well, that can't be right. What am I missing? What am I not thinking about? And you start second guessing yourself and things like that. Besides the fact some of them can be super hard. So my point is, you guys did a really good job. And as we look through it, just try to learn from the things that were wrong, and then it'll be easier as we go forward. But you did a really, really good job on this one. The textbook had some weirdly phrased questions. So what about this first one? We had set my variable equal to something. And they were asking which one is not valid. Now you can see which one is the right answer. Why is this one the right answer? The majority of you got it. If you got this question, you might.
I didn't get it the first time.
No quotation, no quotes around it. So, okay, I'll buy that. But how come it doesn't care about me having quotes around the one above? Why would that be okay?
Because you're trying to declare string, you can't declare string
versus a number. So remember, when you're looking at a quiz question like this, you don't know how my variable has been declared. All you're saying is, if it was declared as a string, this would be valid because it has double quotes around the X. If it were declared as a number, this would be valid because we're setting it equal to a number. This one is not valid in any way because it's not a number and it doesn't have double quotes around it. So it can't be valid. So that's the kind of thing we're looking for there. Now this bottom one is a math problem, so it's valid. We could set a variable to the result of that math problem. But that's why that one was that way. Okay, this one, they tricked a lot of people with that number. Why is negative 386,529? Why would we think that wasn't an integer? Gee, well, a negative number is still an integer. That's a good question. So anything else about that one that you would question as to why it wouldn't be an integer? So positive or negative, doesn't matter, still an integer as long as it doesn't have a decimal place part. I could see for me, I might have misseen that comma and thought it was a decimal place. I could see that happening because sometimes those things can be really small and hard to see. So this is just 8. It doesn't really have a decimal part. Why is it not an integer?
Because of what?
We're waiting. Because why?
No, I forgot it.
It's just 8. Why isn't it an integer?
Oh, because it's.
Say it loud. He's got it because it's got a decimal place. So we've said this could, the 0 is the decimal part. It's just a 0, but that's still a number with a decimal.
I missed that one.
Oh, and what is the value of the following expression? We'll just jump off a little bit here. We're going to start using Python. So let's bring up Python and type in this calculation and see if we can be sure that it's valid. So I'm going to click on my start menu and start typing Python. And I'm just going to bring up this little Python 3.6 desktop app. Now it's going to come up really fun, this wonderful black screen. This is the Python interpreter. So we can type things into it like a command, and it will process it and give us the results back immediately. So I'm going to type this calculation in. So I've got 40 divided by 4 plus 6 times 4 minus 2. So at this point, this Python interpreter, I'm just using it like a big old calculator, huh? I'm going to type that whole formula in. And since I'm working with the interpreter, as soon as I press enter, it should return an answer to me.
That's -2, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's fine.
So what is going to happen first in this calculation before I press enter? What?
6 times 4 and 40 divided by 4.
What about the 40 divided by 4? Which one's going to have, does it matter? They're both going to happen first, right? Before we do an addition. So 40 divided by 4 is going to give us 10, plus 6 times 4 will be 24. Is that right? Minus 2. Does that come out right? So we can use the Python interpreter to try math problems like that. And the reason I wanted to show you that is because those kinds of math interpretation problems where we're trying to figure out that PEMDAS relationship and figure out what's going to happen first, it's really easy to use this Python interpreter to check, see if we've got it right, see if we're understanding it. I'm going to minimize that, and we'll come back to it after we look at some more of our questions. So everybody did really good on that one. The next one, if we have a variable named hours and it's set to a value of 10, what is the value of the variable salary after we have said set salary equal to hours times 10? Hours times 8, sorry. Hours is 10, so we're going to multiply that times 8. The majority of people got that one. Good job. This one you're going to see everywhere you go for a couple of years. You're going to be taking CIS classes or computer science classes. Syntax, syntax, syntax. That's always the rules of our language. Okay, and this one I think got a few people, and I know I had a few questions before the test began, and I think I had a question or two during the test, which was too late, right? So what is the percent sign?
The remainder after the
It's what?
I'm hearing it.
Mod?
It's modulus, and it gives you
the remainder after the
the remainder after dividing. So if we were to divide 22 by 5, we would get 4, remainder 2. So our answer from that would be 2. And again, we can try that in the Python interpreter window. I'll do 22% 5. And then we can check it and get our answer back.
Yes.
So that modulus command, there it is, was a really hard one for me to remember too. So get that stuck in your head. It can be hard.
The way I did it, since I didn't have a calculator, I decided to go, well, if, 22 divided by 5 is not, a whole number, we do, what goes into, basically, I knocked out the 2's and then I divided the 20 by 5. And then I was like, okay, yeah, that's how I got it.
Got to be that. Well, you want to get it by actually dividing the first number by the second and calculating what the remainder is, because that's how it's going to handle that math for you. Now, again, which of the following is not a floating point number?
I don't know if I got that.
I think we got it pretty good. Not a floating point number would be any integer. So we're looking for something that doesn't have a decimal part.
I mean,
Good. And then the next one, oh, it tricked a few people. Which of the following would you use to store a phone number? The right answer that they're looking for is a string. But a lot of people said variable. That's not real. That's not a thing. Variables are variables, but that's not a data type. So we're looking for a data type here. And then one person said float, and a phone number will do that to people, because people are like, well, it's just a number, but we don't like to use a phone number as a number because sometimes people might put the dashes in there. There might be other special characters.
I remember we discussed this, and I think I know why float can't be that, to be honest, because it would be an integer, not a float anyways, right?
Right, it would
If
be,
we're in-
it would be an integer if it were a number. Yeah,
Okay.
but it,
Figured that out.
but we don't usually like, we like to kind of put things in strings that might have a lot of formatting, like social security numbers and phone numbers and things like that. Woohoo, 100%. Yay.
oh, you get 100%. Yeah, which
This one, the operation in a computer program that transmits data from an outside source to the program is input. Good job. Good job.
That almost tripped me up. I was like,
Yeah, it's worded pretty weird. Now, on the other hand, this one gotcha. Which of the following is not an acceptable variable name? Now, I agree, M is a sucky variable name, but it's still acceptable, right? Because it's not invalid. So the only one that's really invalid is the one that starts with the number, because we can't start with the number. We have to start with a letter, special characters, pound sign that we're allowed to use. So that's what's wrong with that one. Which is not a way to input data into a program. A mouse is an input device. A touch screen monitor is an input device and an output device. So our devices are getting smarter, where they can actually serve more purposes than they used to. All right, this one got a few people. Throw those math problems at us. So first of all, it's another question I got. What's this thing? That, what is it? Exponent, right. So if I look at this formula, the exponential math is going to happen first within the parentheses, and then the x plus 2, because it's within parentheses. Mhm.
Could you put this equation into Python and then Python will put the variables in, or do we have to put the variables in for it? You know what I mean? Like, could we set up x equals?
Yeah,
y
we
equals
could. Let's
2?
try it. The thing that I'm worried about with Python is we might not be able to do that exponent that way. We
Okay.
might have to use their math library, but let's try it.
Okay.
So we can say x equals 6 y equals 2. And then we want to put in our math problem, 4 plus 3 to the power of y.
Hold on, phone, it's behind.
Look at the Zoom session. Times
Is the
x
Zoom open?
plus 2. If I don't, I need to. Yeah, it's open.
Here, you have it open.
Divided by y. I always have a Zoom session open. Okay, so we're going to do this math here. And I'm going to press enter to see if it likes it. Because Python has a special math library, and we might have to use that to be able to do the exponential math. But we'll try it. Yeah, it doesn't like it. Oh, and it says y. Oh,
likes
look,
it.
it's my problem. It's me. Look at me using those uppercase
I was
letters.
about to say mine like the low.
I just messed it up. So Python is case sensitive, unlike Raptor. Now let's see if it's better.
Your wife's still.
I still did it.
Mhm.
So to get this line of code back in the editor, I'm pressing the up arrow. And the up arrow will redisplay the last line of code that you entered. And I finally got it. Is it wrong?
Why is it wrong?
It's wrong because Python doesn't understand that
Oh.
power, the exponential value thing. So we'd have to use the Python math library to actually get that to work right. So we could kind of do it ourselves. Let's say we do 4 plus, so what is the result of that going to be? 3 to the power of 2, so 9?
Mhm.
So 4 plus 9 times x plus 2 divided by y. I'm just going to kind of override that exponential math and put that little answer part in there. Is that more righter than what it wants? So more righter. So I don't like it that Python didn't give us an error telling us it didn't know how to do that math. So one of our early Python programs that you guys are going to do involves exponential math. Remember, you can't do it in display because if you do, you won't get the right answer. So, but we can try all sorts of things with that Python interpreter. So good job. Complicated. Okay, another unacceptable variable name. Why is that one unacceptable? Because of the space. Now that bottom one, all of the above are acceptable variable names, wasn't actually a variable name. All that stuff. But they're not okay because we can't have spaces. Okay, so this one wants to know what are the variables. We're going to input candy bars, so that would be a variable. We're going to set price equal to 2, so price is a variable. Then we're going to set cost equal to candy bars times price, so cost is a variable. So these other ones are correct. Those are variables, but they're not all of them. And this can be something that you really need to watch out for in tech fields also, is people will come back to me and say, but these are variables, these 2 answers are right. And if I pull those 2 answers out of context, I would say, yes, they are right. Those are variables. But this answer is the most correct. So that's what we have to look for sometimes too, is we can't just stop and say, yes, these are both variables, I'm done. We have to actually make sure that we're getting the most accurate of the possible answers. The hierarchy chart and the flow chart gets everybody every semester. I told you guys that. It still got you. I don't know what to do. I think I'm just gonna make a Kahoots that just shows a flow chart and a hierarchy chart over and over and over and make you say which is which. Maybe that would work. We'll try it. Remember, the hierarchy chart is the squares that just say this module calls these 3 modules, where the flow chart actually shows the logical flow of the program and uses the diamonds and all the other symbols. So they look very much alike at this point. It's totally understandable. No, some of them you won't. But he did good on this. These questions about stuff that's coming up, whenever we're working with something that can be repeated instructions, we call it a repetition structure. The sequential structure is what we've been working with so far, where we just follow the lines of code in order and assume they're going to be executed exactly in order. Comments? Now, I can always tell you that this will never be the right answer. Something else, I don't know, maybe that. None of those are ever the right answer. So you can just, on any questions, in any field, so you can just kind of not pick those if you don't know. And just try to get that one that seems right.
It made us fill in the box, so we couldn't even choose something altogether, type something out.
Oh, on this one?
Yeah, so it's saying something else.
You guys put in, oh, I thought you picked something else. I see. So I'll have to look at that. And you guys do look, because if you just made a real small typo or something here at the beginning of the semester, I'll give it to you towards the end of the semester. I won't, but it's understandable for sure. I'll see what you're saying. And there's another something else. So let's see, comments included within a program to explain parts of the code are called internal documentation. And then one person had put in step comments. And it really does say that in our textbook. So we added that. Is it also a correct choice? So let me know, again, if you're seeing things that seem unclear, because we don't want it to be like a trick question test. Those fill in the blank ones are tough to come up with the answer on. Variable names must be created before a program can be designed. No, when we're designing, we might come up with variable names, but we don't have to decide what we're going to call all those different data elements as we're designing the program. A logic error causes a program to fail. Everything else you guys just got all right. Loops and repetition structures are the same thing, and that'll be more meaningful when we get to those and I've actually worked with them. And this is when these guys up here in the front got me to change, because it said output. Where are we? I'm looking at something different up
Yeah,
here.
but this is what sparked.
It's what sparked it.
Right.
Yeah, and in the book it says you want your desired results, and the fill in the blank was only taking output.
Right.
So we fixed that.
Oh, good.
Main module.
I was nervous.
And do what, check this one, because some of you might have just typed like main, or you might have made something really close to main module there that it counted wrong. So let me know. Get you some points, because they can be so picky. And then technical writers are the ones that do the documentation. Oh, only 2 people got that binary thing.
Really?
Yeah. In this one, decimal to binary, only 1 person got, and it was a really easy one, if you can tell. So I'm glad they got it right. Really glad. Did you?
I got it right.
Okay. That's it. You guys did good. So I think that was great.
So the average is 86? That's average?
Something like that. Now I want to go to, I'm looking at Canvas here, and I want to go past our week that was the unit exam. And I'm in student view, and so everything is blocked from me because it says I have to complete all these items above. So you might not have that problem because you've already done those things, but I'm going to at least go in and touch them so that it marks them completed. And then I should be able to move on in Canvas. Week 5. Oh, I missed something. Come on, you silly thing. I think it's going to make me like take it.
Maybe it was practice exam.
This won't let me go because it says my unit one hands-on exam is overdue.
Did you submit it?
I almost didn't
Now try
submit
and move
that.
forward, see if it works now.
If it will, I don't think it's going to because I didn't submit it. It's like got me trapped.
I almost didn't submit the hands-on exam because I thought it was the little file we submitted in the test.
I'm gonna have to take that off. Because it's past the date and it won't let me do it.
It's still saying that I didn't. Get it. Oh my God, I didn't submit it.
You're showing it. You asked me.
Charlie,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. I had it. I've done. It's done. I can put it right here right now. If
Okay.
you would accept it, I am so sorry.
I'll accept it, but you're gonna get a late penalty.
Okay, fair enough. That was my fault.
Did you see the little scrapper part we did on the unit one exam with the hand-in part? Or hands-on?
No, that was part of your exam.
Because I was able to click through everything, but it still won't.
I know. You guys, I just eliminated that. So let's refresh
Okay.
and see if we can get to week 5. Nope, still can't get to it. You can get to it?
I can.
Why is it not letting us? Week 3? Yeah, I deleted all of the prerequisites though.
Mine's not saying that.
Maybe it's this one.
I can get it in week 6. I think you took out.
Oh, did I get that one and not week 5? I could believe that.
And then you look at week 6. We gave it already.
Oh, it's open good. There you go.
Good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, try to leave those open so you can get to the practice test. Technical difficulties.
I can't believe we have like 11 weeks left in the semester.
I just got rid of everything off that module. That should work. We'll see. It's letting me get to it finally. I didn't get to week 5. You guys are probably okay. I've missed something way back since I'm not really a student. So this stuff says that it's due. Like this thing says that it's due today, our chapter 4 review questions. I had a couple of people that have turned them in, and that's great. But I really think that we need to change that. So I'm going to change this due date to Tuesday night.
Okay.
Actually, I'm going to change it to next Thursday because I want you to have more than one chance to talk about that. And I will do that as soon as I'm not a student. So don't worry about those chapter 4 review questions. If you've already turned them in and you want to redo, you certainly can because they won't be due yet. Now, let me fix that before I move on. Oh, it won't let me. I hate the way Canvas won't let me be not a student. It's like you're a student or you're not a student.
I could just imagine in the future they have like technology to basically just insert information into your brain and then it's like saving, you know, like all the costs of college. Like, okay, you know all this now. Okay.
Yeah, I just don't think that I'm going to allow my brain to be sucked that way.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you have a point.
Double.
Like, no, not memory. It's like they had to do it like how we, yeah, the knowledge. Not
So-
necessarily hands-on stuff.
Now that I've gone crazy here, we're going to start with chapter 4 next week. In my original plan, we would have started chapter 4 today and then started Python next week. But I would like to start with Python today because we just have a good day today to get started with that. And then next week we can talk about if statements and use Python to explore our if statements instead of just using pseudocode because it doesn't give us as much of a feel. So let's do some things in Python. First of all, I want to look at Python itself and look a little bit at its history. So I'm just going to search for the history of Python, not the history of Google. History of Python.
Python was conceived.
It was conceived and developed by Guido van Rossum in the Netherlands. And they say it was a successor to the ABC language, which doesn't really mean much, probably to us. So we don't know what that is. And it used the Amoeba operating system. Again, just a little bit off the wall and some things that were going on in the Netherlands. Back in the 80s, whenever Python was developed, the United States and the Netherlands and stuff still kept pretty separate with their stuff. So they really were working with different operating systems, different development tools than we were, because we don't have this worldwide attitude of sharing. Of course, we're seeing that kind of go away a little bit now, aren't we? We'll have to see what happens. But he wanted to develop a programming language that was more English-like, that wouldn't be as difficult to use as some of the historic programming languages like C and Java. C and Java are just riddled with curly braces and semicolons and all sorts of special characters. Python is not. It's much friendlier. Now, there's a Wikipedia link, but there's also some other things out here that you might be interested in looking at. Lots of different histories of Python.
I like why it's named Python. I think that was pretty cool. After he was watching Monty Python's Flying Circus while he was developing it.
Oh my God.
So people always think that's a trick question,
Right.
that it was named after Monty Python's
I
Flying
love Monty
Circus.
Python.
That's true, it really was. So we got it. Okay, so Python is an open source development language. Go to python.org. Python.org is the home website for Python. And whenever we're working with open source tools or applications, that means that anybody in the world can add to Python. They can go look at the existing code base and they can add more to it, like another function or another keyword that we want to use. Also, because it's open source, that means we can use it without spending any money. We don't have to buy Python. If my company that I work for is going to start using C# and they want to tool up all their programmers with Visual Studio to start using C#, they could spend up to $10,000 per programmer for those development tools. So something like Python that's free can be really attractive to people. Now, on the other hand, if I'm working with C# and something goes wrong, it quits working, Microsoft is going to get that fixed, right? They're there. They've got all these people that have spent money on this. They're going to be up day and night until they get that fixed. With Python, if we run into some sort of major problem, we're kind of on our own, right? Because it's an open source programming language. So we can hope that a bunch of other people are running into the same problem and that developers are out here trying to fix it, but we're kind of at their mercy. So it kind of gives us a little bit less of a cushion. So with Python, if you look at this website, they have everything here. So if you want to put Python on your computer at home, you're going to go to the downloads section. And if you look at the download section, the big yellow button that says download Python 3.7.4 is going to be the newest version of Python. But what version are we running? If you start typing that PY here on your desktop, you'll see we're running a 3.6 version. So that shouldn't cause us any trouble, but we're not necessarily running that newest version. Now, one thing with Python that does cause trouble, there was a version of Python like 2.8 that was very, very popular. And it was very, very popular for many years. So Code Academy is a website that's a training site. They use that older version of Python. All of the training websites that we go to are going to use that older version. So we have to be aware of the differences between that older version and this newer version. There's not very much, but we'll talk about it when we run into them. So when you're at home, you're going to download this and just install it on your computer.
But can we download the 3.6 or?
The newest one should be fine. Yeah, I don't think we'll run into any trouble. Down here at the bottom, they do have a link though that says looking for Python 2.7. So if we do run into any trouble, we can have both of them running. We'll hope not to. And then I want to look at the documentation link. Again, Python was so popular with that 2.7 release that we'll always see links for the old stuff and links for the new stuff. People are finally moving to the newer versions of Python. Hopefully someday we won't have to worry about that old version anymore. But we would want to look at the Python 3.x docs. Let's take a look at that. Now, when you go to that link, you should see almost, in an online textbook, your online manual. And it's going to have all the different parts. Oh, isn't that cute? Here's even the library reference, the part you're supposed to keep under your pillow. There's your language reference that talks about if statements and how we do different things. Lots of stuff. Everything that you would ever need. Now I'm going to go back because we'll be there plenty. Not too many other things here. The community, you could go to the forums, and then if you wanted to start getting involved, do that. Success stories and news and stuff like that. There should just be general information about Python and updates and things like that. We should be able to go to this docs link up here and get to the same documentation. So it's just a couple of links to the same place. So let's go to that Python command interpreter. When we bring up the Python command interpreter, I'm going to minimize all this junk behind me here. Maybe. I think I might have a few things open. We've seen so far that we can type a line of code and the interpreter will interpret it. How a command interpreter works. We don't have much room for boards. Here's my processor, my CPU. If I'm working with a programming language like C, it gets compiled into an EXE, an executable module. When I have an executable module, the CPU can process that module directly. I don't need any other pieces of software involved. Now, when I'm working with something like Python, Python is not compiled. So I need the command interpreter, the interpreter, to interpret my Python statements to be processed by the processor. And then the processor is going to send stuff back. We're going in both directions. So that means I can't just take something of Python that's been compiled and run it on another machine. I always have to have Python installed. The command interpreter has to be available for me to run this program. So I need the interpreter. The other side of this is, since it's an interpreted language, it's going to run slower, right? An executable that's already been compiled down to object code that's interpreted by the processor is going to run faster than a Python module that has to be interpreted. So we see some drawbacks for having that interpreted code, but this is the actual interpreter. They call it the Python shell. So it's going to be running code. But if you notice, it doesn't let us like save a file with a whole bunch of lines of Python code like we need to, so we could actually have a program. So there's another tool that comes with Python. See if I can open it without messing stuff up since I've already got it open. I'm going to close this real fast. Hang on. So what I'm looking for is idle. So see if you can find it. It's installed with Python. It's the default Python editor.
Oh.
You should see this little icon with the kind of whoops page with the Python icon above it. Now, when you get idle open, it looks just like the Python interpreter, only it's a white background instead of black. But if you notice, we have a new file menu across the top. Let's start out with our Hello World program. We always like to write a Hello World program when we're learning a new programming language. So I'm going to try it with Python. And the first one I'm just going to do right here at the shell. So just type what I do, and then let's see if we can run it. I think I can make my font bigger. Hang on. Hello. It's Adele. So I'm going to write this one line of code that says I want to use the print function, and what I want to print is the string hello world. When I run that by pressing enter, I should see my hello world message displayed. Got it? Working for everybody? Found your idle editor? Not giving you any hard time. Now, we have a lot of editors available. We're going to start out with this idle editor just because it gets installed with Python. How is it? So let's say this is an actual file in case we wanted to run it again. So on our idle, we have a menu. So I'm going to use the file menu to say I want to create a new file of Python code. When I create my new file of Python code, I'm going to go ahead and save it. Now for me, I'm going to save this to my OneDrive. And remember, if you save it to your OneDrive, you can get to it from home. And I'm going to name this Hello World. And I'm going to put .py. In idle, it says it's going to save your file as a type.py, but it's lying. It actually doesn't. And if we don't put the .py, it won't be a Python file, and idle won't know what to do with it. So it won't color code it. You'll see what I mean as we're working with stuff. Okay, now I've got my file saved. I can see across the top that my file is helloworld.py, and this file is going to have Python code in it. Okay, I'm going to turn you off. So we're going to have code in this file. When we're working with Python, comments are going to start with a pound sign or hashtag. That's going to indicate a comment line. So I'm going to put in my pound sign. Yes.
How did you get to that window now?
I did file new on idle. Do you have idle open? It all looks the same.
Yeah, I know.
That's why I was running around to see it. Do what?
Can you do it on your screen?
So just do file, new file.
Mhm.
And then it pops up with a new file. And we did file, save.
Oh, obviously, that's-
Got it? Everybody else okay? Got a file saved okay? Because these things all look alike. That's why I'll run around and make sure you're getting it, because we want to all stay on the right path today, or we'll be way off out in the wilderness. So I'm going to put that this is going to be a Python script called Hello World. We're going to put your name. Going to put the date. We're just going to do a whole bunch of comments for this one. And our purpose is going to be say hello. So in Python, the command that we're going to use to print output to the screen is the print command. The print command takes whatever values we pass to it in the parentheses as something to be printed. So we're going to say we want to print hello world.
Can I make the size of everything bigger on here?
On yours,
Yeah.
if you do your display properties, we can do it after a while if you want. Let's run it and see if it's working. Now to run this, it's not the same as just sitting in the command interpreter where I could just press enter. I'm going to use the run menu and I'm going to say run this module. Notice F5 would do that same thing. So I can press F5 if I want to run it. Now when I run it, it's going to switch to that command interpreter. It's going to print out the name of my file, and then it's going to print the output from our program. Do you see it? Got it? Everybody got it? I'd like to add the date and time to this. So I'm going to go to that Python documentation and see how I find the date and time. Up here in the quick search, I'll search for date. It says there's a Python module that's the basic date and time. Looks like there's all sorts of stuff. What I want you to see is, as you search this documentation, we can find a lot of things, and sometimes it might be too much to be helpful because we might not find a good example. And as we go through looking at the different pieces of documentation, we can find stuff that is kind of hard to follow. Look at all this, so it just doesn't look easy, does it? So I have to do all sorts of experimenting. So I wanted you to see, like I said, that there are so many different options available in the documentation that sometimes we might want to search for examples, or we might want to keep track of our own information. So let's do that. Let's start a Word document. I'm going to open Word here, and I want to create a new Word document. In my new Word document, I'm going to make this be my Python quick reference. It's going to be just for me. So I'm not going to have other stuff in here that I don't need. I'm just going to have things that we've done. So to make my Python quick reference, I'm going to press enter a few times so that I don't start my table on the very first line, because you know how Word hates that. And then I'm going to insert a table. So I'm going to do insert, and I want a table that is just like 2 columns. Okay. And the first thing I want to do is kind of rearrange this a little bit. I'm going to move this middle column over here. And I'd like for my top row to be headings. So I'll go ahead and make those bold and centered and maybe 14. And then I'll say that this is going to be the move your mouse pointer here to where it turns to the white arrow and click to select the row. Everybody got their table? We always have a little word sub-lesson here. That's okay. Throw me your questions. I'm fine. We'll figure it out. So I want to do my explanation here. So I'm going to have keyword and explanation. Now, you know Word tries to fix everything for you, and that's a problem. Because when we're putting our code in here, we don't really want it to fix anything. So we will have to fight with Word a little bit about that. So I want to put that print statement in. I know that Word is going to highlight or uppercase that P for me, but you know if you go back and backspace and type it again, that second time Word's like, oh, okay, you really do want it to be small? I do. And I'm going to put that in there. She's got this.
Oh, I don't know what you did here. Let's do that. That's gonna.
You guys could always yell at me. I've taught that one in one class about 55.
Oh, have you?
Sometimes it's hard to go slow. I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do
It
you mean?
gave me an
I've
error.
forgotten a lot of stuff.
But my table was only 2 rows. It wouldn't give me, and I'm like,
There we go.
ah.
So there we go.
Remember how it's frozen.
See, there you go. Okay. There you go. You're welcome. This is kind of, which one's the best one to install? I've been following on my desktop.
I didn't even sit there.
So is this? No, this is HP. But I don't understand. Okay. Okay. Great.
Okay, so let's put some explanation out here. Everybody's helping. This will print our words, hello world, to the console screen. Now, when we're working with Python, that Python interpreter is our console screen. In the console, the term the console comes from old school computers where they would have that giant mainframe, and then they'd have one of those great big giant green screens that ran the whole thing, and that would be the console. So that console was the one place you could see what was going on.
It would be so dope if like they had a museum here in Springfield, one of those.
It would be cool. If you go to the museum in Huntsville, the Rocket Museum, it makes you wonder if they really did land on the moon. You look
Don't
at the
get my brain
technology.
going.
Look at the technology they said they were using. Oh my
Don't
God,
get
those
my
guys should
brain
not have
going.
been doing that stuff. They were just like hanging out.
There's an animals in the space before though.
Yeah, they've got the monkey down there.
Sent it there, like suffocated to death or something.
Whoa. What are we saving this as? Have we saved it yet?
No, and we are going to save this as our Python quick reference.
Okay.
So let's save it. And I'm going to save mine into that same folder where I've been putting all my Python code and everything. Keep everything together. And I'm going to say this is my Python quick reference. Oh, it's contacting the server. We must have all pressed enter at the same time. Slowed it down. Now, I could also say print 45. And what would that print out? What do you think? What would it print?
The number 45.
Yup, number 45. If I put print variable name, then it would print the value of the variable.
Is hello world in quotation marks because it's a string?
Mhm. Now that P got uppercase on me, so I will make it lowercase again. So I'm going to go back to my Python program, my Hello World program, maybe, if I can find it. There it is. Nope, that's not it. Too many windows. So I'm going to create a variable called my name equals. And then I want to make this say hello, comma, my name, instead of saying hello world. So what should I do? It's just the same as our pseudocode.
So is that plus my name?
Plus my name, exactly. Now, do you want to run that? Let's make sure it works.
There it is. That's what I was doing wrong.
It wants me to save it.
Save it.
Oh, okay.
Now, how come my name is squished right up against that comma?
You need a space.
Let's see. Should I put a space like here? No?
Between the comma and the parentheses.
So, like here?
The comma.
Like a here?
Parentheses, quotation.
You are being so patient. Thank you so much. He knew I was doing it to him. So yes, I have to put the space within my double quote string because I want that space to be at the end of that string before it prints my name. And all those other places I was putting it wouldn't matter at all because it's outside of our string. Wouldn't show up anywhere. So I'm going to run that again then and see if that fixed that little problem. Yay. It did. So now I want you guys to set up a variable that holds your birthday. And I want you to add that to our output. So I want it to say, hello, whatever your name is, your birthday is, and then your birthday. So let's make your birthday just be a string, and you're just gonna put it in that string.
Doing our birthdays.
Oh man, my fingers is
Well, if you're feeling old, I'm not gonna put mine in.
So we put our birthday and what?
Then change your output to display your birthday after your name. Make it a nice sentence.
Where you want? Sorry for instance, do you
You're
want
okay.
it as a numerical birthday or as like a August?
I would say August 24th.
Okay.
comma, yeah, just make it a long string.
Right, okay.
Is it working?
Yep, I put quotation marks on the wrong thing. I want to do something.
Oh, I did it wrong.
Oh, no.
Oh, right, you have to do the run. I'm such a good.
Now, as you're coding this, idle is not a very good editor. But notice it's still helping you quite a bit. We get to looking like a Christmas tree. All our comments are red, so we can tell that it understands their comments. Our strings are in green. So that's kind of helpful. Look how it's got the beginning and ending quotation marks in green for you. So you see where that string begins and ends. In Raptor, it's harder to tell where the string ends and our variables start. But here we can see it a little bit easier. Okay, so I'm going to add that into my print statement.
So, okay, so I was doing it, right?
Yep. So there's so many different ways I could do it, but I can just add and keep adding more items to my output string. I'm going to run this and make sure everything works. That works.
Yeah, I did the exact same thing.
My brain keeps wanting to put your name as.
I know a lot of people do that, just copying. So let's make some errors.
I already did it.
Did you? You're experimenting? Good.
No, it's not coming out right when I ran it. Woo!
We'll fix it. So let's try some errors. If you haven't made any errors, let's make some. First, I'm going to get rid of this closing double quote. Now, if I don't notice that all this stuff is green, let's see what kind of error message we get. Because sometimes Python's error messages are not very helpful, and they can make people really mad. What's that mean? EOL while scanning string literal. Huh? What's EOL mean, you think? End of line. Very good. And what do they mean while scanning string literal?
pretty straight. So
They were scanning, looking for that closing quote and never found it. They hit the end of the line.
Never.
So
We
they
should put that in our notes.
put it in your notes. I think that's a good one. All right, so I'm going to put that double quote back in to get rid of that error. Now, what if I get rid of this closing parenthesis?
I did that.
Does it like it?
No.
What's it do if you do that? Now, again, what's EOF?
And it-
End of file. Good guess. So it hit the end of our code before it found the closing parenthesis. So that's what that error message is saying. Only it's not saying that at all, is it? If you're at home and it's 10:30 at night because you waited until the last minute to do your program, this is not going to help you. So try to really look at these now so that they don't get you in the evening when you're trying to get something done. So unexpected end of file. It always turns everything red where it found the error. So sometimes that'll help you figure out what it's talking about. But notice it doesn't say unmatched parenthesis or something helpful like that. Okay, so we're going to put our parenthesis. Huh?
What does parsing mean?
Reading. Looking at each of the different words. So let's see, I think I'll make this P an uppercase P. Does that matter? Let's try it and see. Yep, says I don't know what print is with an uppercase P.
That's where my mistakes were.
Yep, it's very case sensitive, isn't it? So we've gone from Raptor that didn't care at all to Python that cares a whole ton about our case. So, and let's try that same thing with our variables. On my name variable, what if I make that N lowercase? It won't find it, will it? Let's see what kind of message we get. There it is. Now this one actually is helpful. My name is not defined. And again, you have to look at it. See, oh, there it is. It should be an uppercase N. Any others? Okay, cool. Let's make this into a module. We said in our first few chapters of our book that the system always looks for a module named main to begin our program. And right now our program doesn't have any modules at all. It sure doesn't have one named main. So Python is just executing these lines of code for us. But let's put them in a module named main so that we feel better about it. When I want to create a module, it's actually called a function in Python. I'm going to use the keyword def. And then after the keyword, I'm going to have the name of my module. When I'm declaring the module, after its name, I have to have an open and close parenthesis and a colon. Seems weird, huh? We'll get used to it.
And what did that mean again?
That means I want to declare a function named main. It doesn't accept any parameters. That's why it just has empty parentheses. And the colon in Python means that the code that follows is part of this module. But this code that we have is not going to work right. I'm going to run this, see what kind of message I can get. It says expected an indented block. So Python likes things indented. It does. So I'm going to indent all three of these lines of code under our main module so they become part of that function. We have to be really careful with this indenting because it'll get really messed up if we do one with a tab. Are you listening? One with a tab and one with spaces. not gonna work. We have to be very consistent with how we indent our code. If you see sideways, and you don't know that things are lined up,
Like
it's
mid-step.
gonna be a problem. Yeah, they have to be lined up exactly to be in our module. So I'm gonna press tab at the beginning of each of those lines to indent them.
Can you highlight all of them, press tab?
You should be able to do that. Yeah, that should be fine. And then if I wanted to dedent them or outdent them, I could highlight them. And I think with Python, it's backspace. No, it wasn't that.
Oh.
Let's see. It should be shift tab, but it just still goes forward.
Here's another one.
I know I found it eventually. That's not it.
How do I undo?
Control Z.
His backspace work.
Well, your backspace works just on one line,
Oh, I see your point.
but if you have multiple lines selected, it doesn't work. So I'll just resort back to backspace on one line at a time. Now, if you get everything all messed up, it won't run, and it will tell you that there are indentation errors. You can go to your format menu, and you can try some of these different tools. So I can try dedent region. We might have been able to do that with all of them selected. I could tabify and untabify. So sometimes these options here on the formatting menu will fix problems with indentation.
It's control open square bracket.
I'm not gonna remember that. Control open square bracket. I'll use that dedent menu. Okay, so I think I've got this thing lined up now. I got everything indented. Did you have a question?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No.
That declare a, what? The DEF stands for declare a what?
Function.
Function.
And so a function is a Python module.
Sorry.
And actually a function is just like a function you would create on a calculator or a function you might create on your watch. So you might create a function on your calculator to calculate, I don't know, hypotenuse or something like that. That's exactly what we're doing in declaring this function. It's going to have some sort of purpose like that. Now I want to run this again, see if I got rid of all those problems about it being improperly indented. Well, it gave me my file name, but then it just didn't do a thing. So I'll tell you what it is.
Okay.
It's because we have this wonderful function now. We have to tell Python to run it. So I'm going to come down after I have all that code and say, run my main. Which seems silly now, but as we get a bunch more code, you'll see how it does actually matter. So the Python interpreter is going to read all of this code. So it's going to know about this main function, and then it's going to hit this line of code that says, run the main.
So it's basically just closing out.
Getting it to start at that.
Right.
Now let's see if it will work.
Yay.
Yay.
There we go.
Okay, so I'd like to maybe ask for some information here. We better put some more in our notes though. Let's go back to our Word document. So in our Word document now, we need to put something about DEF.
Have your Word document like all the way to the side so that if you press a whole bunch, you won't be able to see it.
You're going to put DEF, then the module name with open and closing parentheses and a colon. And that's going to define a function. What's that function going to be named? Module name, yeah, whatever we put there. Now the colon indicates that there's going to be a body. So I'm going to put that down on the next line. Colon indicates a body follows. And that means it has to be indented. So you'll see it's the same way when we do if statements and looping type statements. The code that goes with those, their bodies, have to be indented. So Python forces you to organize your code in an indented way. It won't allow you to not. A lot of programming languages, us instructors will be like, you didn't properly indent in your looping statement. I take off points for that all the time. With Python, it forces it. So again, in the 80s, that was a big concern, is people were not coding consistently. So when he invented Python, he was like, I'll make them coded consistently and we won't have to worry about it. Okay, so there's our module name. So anytime we have a colon like that, it indicates that a body is going to follow. So we have some good stuff here. Now I'm going to save this one, and I want to take a look at our sale price program. It's a lot bigger than this hello world. I think you guys are up for it though. Let's see. Let's see. I'm going to find our sale price program pseudocode. So this was our first pseudocode that we did just a week or two ago, and you guys have done a ton since then. And if you remember this one, we declared a bunch of variables, and then we have an input, calculations, and output module. In our input module, we're asking for the item name of something that's on sale, the original price, and the percentage it's on sale for. And then we're calculating what that price is going to be with that sale price in our calculations module. And then we did some output to write it out. So this one's pretty large. It's going to be interesting for us to write this in Python. Let's see if we can do it. I'm going to go to idle first. Find idle. It's the white one here. Now, if you found idle, we want to do file, new file, and then let's save this. So I'm going to save this file to idle, the white one, and then file, new file.
So we click file, new file, and then new file again.
No, just once. And now we're saving it. So just save it. And I'm going to name it sale price program. .py. You can say sale price program Python in the name if you want to. Just make sure you put the .py. But so far we've named things, you know, pseudocode, Raptor. If you want to put Python in this name too, that'll keep them consistent. This one's bigger. Okay, so I'm going to put some comments in. And whenever we're working with idle here,
I want you to open something.
what are you opening?
Did you put file save as not open?
Yes, I saved it. We saved it. Are you saving? All right, everybody get it saved. Now, when you go to options, there's this thing that says configure idle. If you look at that configure idle, there is here a place where you can change your font size. So I have mine set to 14, which is really big, but it's still kind of hard for you guys to see. So you can change your font size to whatever you like. If you want to change your font, you can. The next tab over does highlighting, and I just usually like to leave those as they are. But if you want to do some fancy highlighting, then we can have our built-in key set. All of these great things. So the most important one is that first one, the fonts and tabs, where you can decide what your font size is. All right, so I've got some pound signs here. I'm ready to do some comments. Whenever I create a Python code file, it's a script. A script is something that needs an interpreter to run. So this script is going to be the sale price program. I'm going to make it all pretty.
I will put your name.
So I'm going to say our purpose is to calculate the sale price. Now, when I'm grading and I see that we don't have any comments, you probably noticed my rubric takes off like 5 points. It knocks you down to at least a B. I mean, that's the thing. If you don't have comments, you don't get an A. Some of the other instructors will just give you a 0. So let's make sure we're getting comments in, because I don't want to have to start adapting that practice, right? But I will if I have to, because we did actually have a few that didn't have comments at all, those first few programs. Now, I don't believe in giving people 0s unless they did nothing, right? Those teachers say, that's a worthless program, it's worth a 0. I feel like, you still did some work, you probably wouldn't get fired from the job for no comments, even though you might eventually, but probably not right off the bat, so I'll give you a chance.
That would be a horrible job.
Yeah, don't.
That's
Don't
the kind
do
of company that has invested in a permanent
I
fire
hate
zone.
giving somebody a B who's done a really good job just because of comments. I would hate to give you an F. So don't force me into that, because seriously, the other teachers think that that's the right thing. So I'm gonna keep going here. I can see it too. You know, I guess if I gave you a 0 once, you would never forget again, right? But I still think it's a little brutal. Okay, so for our sale price program, we had a bunch of variables. Let's declare them. With Python, it's just like Raptor. We don't have to. Python will figure out what data type our variables are when we use them. So we don't really have to declare variables with Python. But we're going to here for our first few programs, because we want to get good habits, and also because we're going to be using our variables as global variables. So that means that we do have to define them. Did you have something? Did you have a question?
I answered it.
You got it? Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Okay, so I'm going to put my pound sign. Now, is there something else? I think we can do some other weird characters in Python to be a comment. I'll stick with the pound sign for now. Too many programming languages. So we're going to declare our global variables. Now, global variables are variables that are declared outside of any function, outside of any module. So the ones that we had item name, and this was a string. So we're just going to tell Python, set it equal to an empty string. So Python will make item name into a string variable.
Don't we need a string
No, but you could put one if you wanted, but then it would be equal to a space instead of an empty string. So the two quotes together is like an empty string, and if you put a space in between them, it set it to a space. Sometimes you want a space, so absolutely. All right, next I'm going to do original price. And our original price, we decided needed decimal places. So we'll set it to 0.0. Our discount rate was an integer. So I'll just set it to 0. Amount saved is going to be decimal places. Sale price, decimal places. Tax. We need decimals. And finally, our total price. I think that's all of them. Now I'm going to do some additional comments while we're letting everybody get here. And I'm going to go over to the side and I can put a comment on that same line. So I'm going to say that this holds the item name. This one holds the original price. And this is why some people hate comments, because they'll be like, well, that's what you named it. Yes, that's true. And this is going to be the percentage amount the item is on sale. Terrible English. Now our amount saved is going to be the sale amount, the sale price amount. Our sale price is going to be our original price less the sale price. And this one is going to be the money amount of the tax. Because remember, we're going to have a variable that is the percentage of tax. So we want to kind of be clear on which is which. And then our total price. Now, I do want to go ahead and do that tax amount. And that one, we're going to say is a constant value of the tax percentage. So if you remember from our textbook, they said, if we create a constant variable, a value that's not changing, we're going to use all uppercase letters to name it. Lots of variables.
Not the time. There we go. Oh, that. TAS, AMT.
Mm-hmm.
Whoops.
Okay, I hear no typing. You guys have it. Okay, so we're going to have 3 modules in this program, our input module, our process or calculations module, and our output module. And we need a main to call all of those. But because the Python interpreter has to read through all our code before it does anything, we can really kind of start in any of these places. So let's start by declaring our input module. So I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to use that def keyword, and I'm going to call this input mod, and then do my opening, closing, parenthesis, and the colon. It's done. Do what?
Is there space between the D of the input
No.
box and the parentheses?
There's no spaces on there at all.
Will that
It kind of
work?
looks like it. I don't know. You can try it, but if it gripes at you, then it probably will mess it up. I think they have to be all together. Got it? Okay, so our input module is defined there. Now, our global variables that we have up here, the reason that we wanted these to be global variables is we want to be able to use these in any of our modules. So our input module, we're going to get the number for the item name and our original price and discount rate. And then in our calculations module, we'll be updating some of these other numbers. And then in our output module, we'll be using some of them as output. So that's why we've declared all of these up here at the top outside of all of our modules to make them global. We're going to do things this way for a little while, and then we'll switch it up here in a few chapters. But for right now, we're going to use global variables. Well, Python has this really weird thing, and it says that in a module, if you're going to change the value of a global variable, you have to tell Python about it. So in our input module, we're going to update the item name variable, the original price variable, and the discount rate variable. So I'm going to put a little comment out here to the side to say, tell Python these will be updated. So it's no big deal, because if we forgot one, we'll just be able to tell as we test that we're not getting data that comes the whole way through. So somewhere we didn't specify that global setting. Okay, now that we've said our input module is going to update those 3 variables, we're going to prompt the user for input. The way we do it with Python is first we say, where do we want to save the input value? Well, we want to save the item name in our item name variable. So we're going to say set the item name equal to the results of an input operation where we prompt the user with the prompt enter item name. So we're going to be saving the user input in item name. So in Raptor, we put this string, our prompt string, in that top box, and then we put our variable name in the set2 part of Raptor. Here in Python, we just format it a little bit different. We say use the input function that Python has, give the user this prompt, and the data that they type in, save it in the item name variable. Let's go ahead and add a line of code to run our input module. I'm going to press enter to go down a few lines, and then I'm going to back tab so I'm not indented. And I'm going to say run input mod. Because I want to test. Because normally we would run main there, but I could also run any of my other modules like that. So does it work?
What about the colon?
You don't need to call me.
All it did was ask me the item name. Is that what you're looking for?
Uh-huh, that's
Yeah,
what it should do.
did.
Okay, good.
It gave me the prompt.
There's mine. Finally, I can get to it. Yeah, that's what you should see is enter item name. I can type something in. It won't matter because we're not saving it. We could print it, though. Could we print it after we run our input mod? Let's do it. Print item name. There it is, my item name. So it is saving it properly.
Free, wasn't free.
Wait, did I say the thing again?
Which thing?
The shell. Thing where, no, the other thing, the other thing when it showed you it. Okay.
Does yours look okay? Looks good. So now we need to read in, we need to prompt for the original price. I would say, why don't you guys figure that out? But we're not quite ready. Did you already figure it out?
I did not.
Original price. Good. Now I'm going to come down here to the bottom with my debugging stuff and print out that original price so I can make sure it's right. I'm going to run it. My item, my original price, I'm going to make $55.46. Prints out very good.
Oh, mine came out zero.
Yours came out 0. Check your global word up here. And make sure there's no differences in the case.
I know.
Because
so
Python will
sensitive.
just, and it'll just create that variable for you because if it doesn't match your other variables. Now, in our original price, we do have to change something. It all looks good, but internally in Python land, it's really not. Because whenever we do the input command, Python assumes we're inputting a string. For our original price, do we want a string? No. So we're going to have to cast that. And that means we're going to tell Python to change the data type to something else. We want to cast it as a float. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this stuff that's here. I'm going to put an opening parenthesis at the beginning and a closing parenthesis at the end, and then put the keyword float. So that now I've taken that input statement that's going to return a string, and I've wrapped it in a command to convert that to a float. So what we see won't look any different. But before we did this casting as a float, we wouldn't really be able to use this original price in any math statements. We would get an error. So let's go update our Word document with our input command. So we said it's input. Oops. I'm going to start with variable name, huh? Like, where am I? My cursor's gotten lost. Okay, variable name equals input and then the user prompt. So we could say here, the user prompt is passed to the input function. Then the input function displays the prompt and saves the user input to var name. Now, because we're using Word, you guys could do some other things if you wanted to this document. So like, I'm going to go to the home menu, and here where we have the highlighter, the text highlighter, I'm going to change its color. Let's see, I think I want just kind of aqua blue. And I'm going to use that to highlight the Python keywords. I lost my D. So whenever we're looking at our Python code, those keywords are the ones that have to be coded exactly for Python to figure out what it is we're trying to do. Now I want to copy this, get off this highlighter thing, and I'm going to copy this and paste it in the row below, and I'm going to put, get it? I'm going to put my float around that and say cast the input string as a float. Now, as you're looking at the notes here and you're making your quick reference, this is for you. So you don't have to use my terminology, my words at all. The words I'm putting in here is I'm trying to make it easier to answer test questions and keywords and things like that. But you could add to that as much as you want or change it as much as you want so that it's meaningful for you. Let's do one more line of code in our program to finish up our input module, and then we'll leave it for next time. So the last variable that we need to prompt for input in our input module is the discount rate. We said our discount rate is going to be an integer. So again, I'm not going to be able to just save a string from the input command. I'm going to have to cast that as an int, an integer. So our example is really good because we have an example of inputting a string, inputting a float, and inputting an integer. Now I'll go ahead down to our debugging area, kind of what I'm calling it down here. Silly thing, sometimes it won't let me go down. And I'll print that last variable. So by printing things out, We're just doing some troubleshooting, some debugging as we go to make sure that our input statement is correct and we're getting our data saved in our correct variable name. So let's run it. And there's our numbers and input. Everything looks good. I'm seeing it all anyways. Okay, let's save this and we'll get back to it next time. I'm going to put it on the Discord. Make sure I can find it first. See you guys. I'll put this on there. See ya.
Oh,
You're good.
oh, yes. Good. Great.
Okay, that should be on Discord. Maybe the firewall keeps blocking me, so we'll see. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next week.
So simple. It's still like,
No, you could, you couldn't have it front end.
oh.
That protein shake, not.
Oh, see, because you've gone off again.
Stop, don't do that to me.
I wouldn't tell you that, but they have a cure now, see, so it's okay for the alpha gal. So there's a acupuncturist on the East Coast that's curing it with putting pins in people's ears, allergies. So
No, I have.
It's also, it's a,
I can hardly sew on a button on it.
the acupuncture needles are really, they're not a problem. So you just don't even know they're doing it.
Start messaging.
Thank you.
I've always wanted to try it. I just have never, I guess, looked into local people who do it.
Sounds expensive. Sounds like insurance
A
won't
little
pay
bit.
for it.
Oh, I need to check on that. No, actually, it's really helped a lot, though. It's weird. I didn't know it would, but it has.
I didn't know.
I don't have that many allergies.
Yay!
The casting of the float and the input. So I was actually making a program while we were doing it.
Uh-huh.
And it kept giving me an error. and I couldn't
Oh,
figure out
cool.
why.
Good. Yay, yay. It's one that gets you pretty quick.
Yeah.
Causes trouble.
Hey, guys.
Bye.
I never stop drinking stuff before I come to your class. I feel so bad, and I'm like, oh, I can't leave. I'm gonna miss something. All right, so I submitted that to you.
What's that?
My late work, I apologize, but that I screwed up, and I remember specifically telling myself when I got home, oh yeah, I need to submit that tonight. I've already got it done. I had it done at school.
Mm-hmm.
I just went in one, really spaced it off.
I was doing some reading while I waited to be able to catch the bus on Tuesday. And I
Mm-hmm.
suddenly remembered, oh wait, the hands-on exam is different from the little part we did in the exam.
Good job.
40 minutes to do it, and I ran and did it.
So are you leaving right now?
I'm going to soon. What do you need?
I just need to know if I can do this here some other time.
Sure. That's where I'm going to run.
Did you get my chapters for review questions? I sent them in on like.
But you didn't send me an email and tell me that you had. So I didn't go look. Yeah, because that's way past done. So I wouldn't be checking it unless you tell me you did it. But you did it, huh? Well, I will go check then. So, yep, always remember to tell me, because if I don't know it, I won't do anything. Some of those things I can have you submit again in
Luckily-
Canvas and I can tell.
Luckily, all the questions were saved on my computer, and I troubleshooted.
Oh, so
And
it
for
probably
some
just hadn't
Yeah,
submitted.
for some reason it showed me as not being logged in, so I don't know why.
Oh,
the
good. Well, I'm
portal
glad
opened
you
up.
don't have to put them in again. That's what
Yeah.
I was worried about. So it had them saved.
Yeah.
Good.
I have to,
Good, good, good.
I installed Windows 10 onto my computer last
Uh-huh.
night. It was like,
Is it good or bad?
I don't know, but
Oh.
like I had to leave the screen open because if I close it by about this much open, it'll shut down.
Uh-huh. But so it did update and everything was
Yeah.
okay.
And so like when I was going to sleep, I was like, oh man, Sally just gonna bother me. And like 10 minutes into trying to go to sleep, I was like, wait a minute, it's not bothering me.
Didn't bother you at
Yeah.
all, huh? Well, I had an old desktop, and it was old. It was like my son's old one that he had given me when he bought a new one. And one of the Windows 10 updates just completely bricked it. It was that one about the processor. There was a problem with the processor. Well, I apparently had one of the very, very few processors that they couldn't handle the update. So when I went to bed that night, it was doing a Windows update. When I got up the next morning, it never again would work. Stupid thing. So I'm always scared of them now.
I'm just glad that I went to the the PC repair clinic
Mm-hmm.
in Grafhall, and I was talking to him, and he showed me where to get it. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, this is so awesome.
Well, you've got all that information
If
on
you go in-
Canvas.
If you go into your MyOTC, like
Mhm.
the actual MyOTC page, and you click on the resources and all that, it has the web store. It's like right there.
Nice.
I thought you had to search it on the OTC page, and then I
Mhm.
was like, wait a minute, this is for administrators.
Nice. I'll have to check.
Yeah.
So where was it? On your MyOTC?
Yeah, you go to MyOTC.
I don't ever use that, and I remember seeing it.
Hey Shirley,
need
did
to-
you ever figure out how to find the Windows 10 thing?
Oh, I found out I already have Windows 10.
Well, I
My
mean, you can
computer.
install it in another computer.
Oh.
Go real quick.
Well, I have it in my laptop. Is that-
Yeah, but
is
if you
that
have
what you
another
meant? Oh.
computer, go to helpful resources.
Oh, yeah, no, I know that. They also have, you can download Office 360 as well.
OTC web
Yeah.
store,
Yep, I learned that last year.
and then scroll down and Windows 10.
Oh, nice. But it's the education version,
Yeah,
so you'll be limited.
Oh,
Some
yeah,
things you
but
won't
it's
be able
better
to
than
do.
nothing.
Oh, yeah, that's fantastic. Well, cool. Thank you. No, I didn't know Windows was out there. I knew
Neither
there's
did
been
I.
getting more and more stuff out here, but I need to remember to look once in a while.
yeah, they also have Windows 360 and Office
Mm-hmm.
that you can download onto your personal computers as well that the school pays for.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's all sorts of cool stuff.
you know how I was saying how the first computer I ever touched as a kid was a Macintosh?
Mm-hmm.
My brother was digging through storage and he found the Macintosh. It was still kind of working.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't have all the, parts to
Uh-huh.
really use it. So he sold it on eBay. The bid was starting at like $50 and then it went up to like